Welcome back, everyone. Mark Hackich here at Milford Hills, Wisconsin's premier shooting facility, along with special guest Eric Loebner, Bureau Director for Wildlife for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, and newly elected President of the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation, Kevin Kwame.
Wildlife Federation's The Hide.
Welcome, gentlemen. Happy to have you here today on The Hide. Wanted to get everybody together. Eric, it's your second time on the show, and I can't wait to do the thumbnail this time. It will be different than the last time.
Let's talk about that.
Right? But, it's important that, we stress and focus on the relationship between stakeholder groups and the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
And I think, wildlife is really one of the key components of the department.
Yeah, Mark, you know what? I can't express to you enough, and Kevin as well, just the importance of our relationships with conservation groups like the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation. It can go all the way across the board. There's groups out there for every interest, and the Federation has been really a key one for us as well because of the wide diversity of topics and the interests that fall within that group. But having those groups, having relationships and mutual understanding, mutual respect is really key for the work that we do. We use the Wildlife Federation and other conservation groups as a great sounding board of different ideas and different concepts, regardless of the topic. And, we are not going to always agree. And we understand that, but we also have a high level of respect for all the members of the different organizations so that we can just kind of talk about these issues, kind of maybe, see where things go. And they're always members of our advisory committees and that sort of thing, but also just having that general sounding board from the public, right? You have great members that are so critically interested in wildlife. I always say everybody loves wildlife, right? Whether it's, your small amphibians or your large deer, bear, wolves, you name it, right? There's always interest there. Your interests, though, might be slightly different from person to person. And so that's trying to find that value and that balance is really what's key. And that's where the value of groups like the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation come into play.
Yeah, right. I mean, we wake up every day on, how we can be a key component and work with the department.
Yep, that's right, Eric, and thank you for bringing that up to our attention. The Wildlife Federation has been around a long time, 75 years this year, and we have a wide variety of members. And our job is to communicate with those members, get the input, listen, debate, and follow wildlife issues, legislation, everything related to that, and then come up with a consensus that we want to promote and help with the management portion of it to make it work as good as possible and get all of those ideas out.
I can't tell you how much I truly enjoy annual banquets, annual meetings, talking about those different issues. Sometimes there's, like you said, there's great diversity in your groups, and there's nothing more important than that diversity, right? Because you're bringing different ideas from different people from different parts of the state. They're bringing that to the table to have those conversations. And that, at times there's lots of discussions there. I personally really enjoy that. I love hearing those different perspectives, love hearing those different angles that people are looking at it. And all of us, right? We all live in our own little world, right? Whatever that little world is. And so we may sometimes lose sight of a particular issue. And that's where those conversations with your membership, coming to those annual meetings, talking about those sort of things, it's so valuable. I couldn't express it enough.
Yeah, and we appreciate being honored enough to be a part of the process and the advisory committees and being kept in the loop and to learn about the things that we otherwise wouldn't know about. And our volunteers put in a lot of time, effort, and they're passionate. And that passion, I think, is what's important to getting the job done well.
Right.
COVID, in the beast that it was when it came out, it also kind of awakened a new group of people, right? And that group of people didn't really realize how great our resources are here in Wisconsin. And, I said before, I get to travel and have traveled all over especially the Midwest down to Mississippi Flyway from Louisiana north. Wisconsin's unique because we have so much public land that can be used 12 months out of the year, not just for hunting, fishing, and trapping.
Right. It is so great to hear that, Mark. When people appreciating wildlife, right, and getting involved in how good we have it in most situations here in Wisconsin. Everything's not perfect. Right. I just want to be open and honest about that. Everything's not perfect, but we do have a lot of tremendous opportunities for people that want to get out and enjoy outdoor recreational opportunities, whether they are going out hunting, going out trapping, fishing, bird watching, hiking, cross-country skiing, you name it. There are a tremendous number of opportunities that people have here in the state that I think at times we as citizens can take that for granted. I mentioned previously, I grew up on the south boundary of Meade Wildlife Area, central Wisconsin, right? Growing up there, I didn't even really appreciate the value and the experiences that
No, you took it for granted because it was great every day.
Took it for granted, exactly right. It was always there, and sometimes might even begrudged it a little bit for whatever reason, right? Because I couldn't do this or couldn't do that or whatever. Same thing when I worked in Horicon Marsh, big open expanse.
Who hired you?
Years ago. Yeah, that happened years ago. So anyway, we had great, you don't take it for granted, the outdoor recreational opportunities and just the value of those public lands. You hear other states talking about Nature RX, right? Nature RX is getting people a prescription to go outdoors and do things. And I think many times here in Wisconsin, we might not need that so much. Some do. But when you're spending your time out in nature, that is very therapeutic, And there's, like I said, there's a variety of different situations. Sometimes wildlife populations get to be a little bit too plentiful versus sometimes we're trying to restore populations. But nonetheless, and that's the same thing that goes back with the membership of the Wildlife Federation. The common perspective and the common goal is all about conservation. And being a wildlife professional, I say it's all about wildlife. I know there's a lot more to it, right? But nonetheless, it's groups like the Federation that really help support the work that we do one way or another.
Yeah, there's key individuals that we deal with on a regular basis, in the private sector or in agency staff that help champion conservation and the message. And I think they help promote that unity, that camaraderie, but they also at times are the ones that bring us together when we start to fall apart.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because at this particular moment, right, in time and in society, there is a lot of conflict and a lot of strife. And I know, what I've been really excited about is I do see in many ways conservation groups in some avenues are starting to come together and really focus in on the key important issues of habitat, conservation, public land, maintaining those outdoor recreational opportunities that we have available to us across the board. And that is really an important aspect.
Yeah, and our federation expands that, of course, to environmental conditions,
absolutely,
endangered species, water quality. It's all connected, and we try to hit all of those. We've got a number of committees that address all of those issues that we talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, from clean air to clean water to pollinators to to deer hunting, turkey hunting, waterfowl hunting. It doesn't matter. The Federation is unique because it encompasses 360 degrees. There's nothing left out.
Right.
If conservation or wildlife or habitat is involved in it, we're a part of it. And as of late, there's been several controversial topics. Clean energy, right? We're starting to take, just now start to dip our feet into the Buena Vista grounds and the solar farms that are coming up, right? So, that's going to be a serious debate, over the next couple of years. I think the department's going to, take issue, and sides on that. And, you got public, you got farmers that have leased their land, rented their land. You got other folks saying, why did you do that? And then you have, the Federation that, we're trying to come to grips with why, how, what, when, where, everything. And then, of course, what's front page of the news every day now is, when is the wolf going to become delisted? Are we going to have a wolf hunting season? What that hunting season is going to be? And, that's probably the most controversial topic right now in the wildlife outdoor community. And the department's in a tough spot because they gotta find a way to play nice with all the stakeholder groups, and then the stakeholder groups got to realize that, look, we want a lot too, but we're not going to be able to get everything. We got to try to find a way to come to a happy median and at least walk away from the table agreeing on the process and hopefully agreeing on most of the results, because there's a difference between process and the results of the process, right?
Right. When you bring up a great topic, wolves, right? Wolf management plan. Each as all individual representatives, when you come to that table, your expectation can't be that it's all going to end up the way I want it to be as my individual perspective. And that process, it was focused on being very inclusive across the board, trying to involve members of the public as well as these 29 different groups that were brought to the table to get together and talk about wolves and wolf issues. And ultimately, that Wolf Management Plan Committee, they wrapped up their work and ultimately provided some information that we as an agency could use. Now, clearly, it is not one-sided on any of that perspective associated with wolves. Wolves are as everybody, I would say, generally acknowledges, wolves are a very polarizing species. You're either on one side where you're just a strong advocate for wolves, or you have a lot of concerns for wolves. And they're generally, the number of people in the middle seems to be a little bit less than what you might see otherwise. It's not your typical bell-shaped curve, is what I like to say.
Right.
So with that management plan, that was key. Yeah, working with the team that developed that plan to be as inclusive and diverse as we possibly could, and yet recognize our number one goal. And I think every group out there, the number one goal with wolves is to get wolves delisted and to keep them delisted, right? To have and maintain a sustainable wolf population, and yet address the issues that we deal with. I say the citizens of the state as well as the DNR as a whole, with depredation issues. Right now, our opportunities are pretty limited in what we can do when it comes to wolf management for a depredation event. And so getting wolves delisted would certainly provide us some tremendous opportunities. And I feel everybody is there, right? If you want a sustainable population of wolves, you want wolves delisted, right? Because that is an indicator that they are at a biologically sustainable level that the population can sustain itself. If you're concerned where you have some more depredation events on your property, you want to be able to, at times, there may be a necessity to ultimately remove individual animals before that behavior is transferred on to other young within that pack. And so whatever we can do to help eliminate that issue into growing something larger, that is so critical. And research has shown, right, when there are times when you have to remove an individual animal for the betterment of the species as a whole, and that provides that.
And as you know, the Wildlife Federation has a few concerns about the wolf management plan as we have it now, but we've got to remember that we were very supportive of the reintroduction at the time. We've been involved in some of the management plans that are supposed to happen every 10 years, but because of the listing and delisting and so on, it's been nearly impossible to get anything done. And now with the new wolf management plan, it really isn't effective until we can open that toolbox and use those tools and use those management zones to focus on the areas where depredation is a problem. Right now, it's kind of running a little rampant with very few options. And the adaptive plan makes sense once we can put it into use.
Kevin, you're 100% right. You don't really have an adaptive plan that you're implementing if you really can't implement all components of that model. And the plan was very clear about effectively managing wolves. We as an agency have been very open that wolves are biologically recovered in the state. There's a sustainable population. They're doing very well. And certainly, though, moving forward, in order to implement that plan, a key part of that is ultimately getting to the point where, we have wolves delisted. Can we do a lot of things, even if they're not delisted? You bet. There's a lot of work that we can do. One of the key things for us, now that the Wolf Management Plan Committee is now completed with their work, we're going to be starting to transition to the development of our advisory committee. They've been dormant for a while, but now it's time to really bring that group back and let's start talking about how do we implement this plan and ultimately keep wolves at a acceptable, sustainable level here in the state, and then also move more forward with the other activities that we identified in that plan.
There's a lot of talk about the quota, obviously, and
Yeah.
the number of wolves and so on. And the number isn't as important as to where they are.
For sure.
Part of the problem part of the issues that we have is with the original number goal. We expected them to be in certain areas and
Yeah.
where they belong and where they would cause least trouble. Without being able to manage them actively and so on, the population has grown quite a bit. The wolf management plan kind of backed into supporting those numbers and even taking a look at some of those habitat areas that were previously deemed expansion areas, not necessarily suitable habitat. Well, now they're there. So getting the number of wolves isn't as important as to where they are, and that's what we need, that plan and management opportunities to focus that.
Well, why don't we come back in another episode and just hit a couple topics like, how quota management is there, maybe touch on the buffer zones.
Absolutely.
And some of, a couple other little topics and see what we can come up with where we can bring it out to the public and see again how stakeholder groups in the department can discuss these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can spend time talking about, even just about the wolf management plan and wolf populations. And just, I'd be all about that.
Well, we can pick a couple pieces here, a couple pieces there.
Yeah,
and,
you bet.
Eventually we'll get there. Does that sound good?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that we work on together outside of the wolf management plan that we focus on and can continue with that too.
Yep. You bet. You bet.
Well, Eric, Kevin, Chase, everybody, thanks a lot for being here today, participating in the podcast. We greatly appreciate it. Chase, especially you and everything that you do for conservation with grit. And Milford Hills, Wisconsin's #1 shooting facility. Appreciate it. Hope to see everybody back soon
You bet.
for the
Thanks.
next episode.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Have a great day. Take care.
Thanks.